There are roads you drive once and never forget, but it's not always because of the views. Sometimes it's because of what followed you down them. I had just gotten back from deployment. My closest friend from high school, Eli, thought the best way to shake the dust off was a road trip. 4 states, 2 weeks, no plans, just the open road and bad diner coffee. It sounded perfect. We invited 2 more people, Eli's cousin Zane and his girlfriend Riley. I barely knew them, but road trips are weird like that. You either come back as best friends, or you don't come back at all. We were somewhere between Colorado and New Mexico when it happened. We just gassed up and were back on the highway. Nothing but desert for miles. The sun was dipping low, orange sky, long shadows. That's when I noticed the van. Old, brown, no plates, no windows, just metal panels. It was behind us, too close for comfort. I mentioned it once. Zane joked that we'd just been adopted by some serial killer. We all laughed. It didn't feel funny later. Eli sped up. So did the van. We slowed down. So did the van. It never passed, never turned off. Just mirrored us for over 30 miles. Riley leaned over and snapped a photo with her phone. Then, it suddenly turned off down an unmarked dirt road. Just like that. Gone. We thought it was over. We reached the next town after nightfall. Some small place called Carrillo. Population maybe 200. There was 1 gas station, 1 motel, a bar called The Drain. We grabbed a few snacks and got 2 adjoining rooms. Eli and Zane in one, me and Riley in the other. And that's when we saw it again. The van, parked across the street, facing our rooms, headlights off, engine still running. I told Eli. He walked outside, halfway across the lot, and the van peeled away. We didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, we found a note stuck under the windshield wiper. It said, "You passed the test, but you're still being watched." We checked the motel's security cameras. They were fake. Literally plastic domes screwed into the ceiling. Riley was shaken. Zane joked less after that. We debated calling the police, but what would we even say? "Hi, someone's following us, we think." "What kind of car?" A brown van with no plates." "Any proof?" "Just a bad feeling and a handwritten threat." Right. We got back on the road. 3 hours later, we hit construction. A single-lane detour through backwoods terrain. No cell service. No buildings. No cars. Just trees pressing against the edge of the road. And then, ahead of us, the van. Parked sideways, blocking the path. We stopped. No one inside. Zane, against every instinct in our bodies, got out to check. The van was empty. No keys. No driver. Then, we heard footsteps, coming from behind the trees. Multiple sets. We didn't ask questions. Eli floored it, veered onto the grass and around the van. Branches scraped the sides of the car. But we got past, and when I looked back, I saw at least 5 figures in gray hooded jackets, just standing in the trees, watching us drive away. We made it to a real town that night, stayed in a hotel with cameras, locks, other people. Nothing happened. No van, no figures, nothing. It felt over, until I checked my email. A new message. No subject, no sender, just 1 sentence. "We know you're home now." It was sent 5 minutes earlier, and the only way anyone could have known our location was if they were nearby. I still don't know who they were, what the test was, or what would have happened if we failed. But sometimes late at night, when I pass a van on the road with no windows, I still check my rearview mirror, just in case. If something follows you longer than it should, it's not curiosity, it's a choice. Subscribe for more stories where danger hides in plain sight. Drop a comment if you've ever felt like something wasn't just a coincidence. This happened back in 2022. I had just finished my sophomore year of college in Seattle, and me and my roommate James decided to do something spontaneous for spring break. No Cancun, no family trip. We wanted something raw, cheap, off-grid. So we mapped out a week-long road trip across the Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, all desert roads and roadside diners. We borrowed James's older brother's Jeep Wrangler, packed it with water, gear, and one of those janky Bluetooth speakers that barely held a charge. We were maybe 20 hours into the drive, somewhere in northern Arizona, when we stopped for gas and snacks. That's when we met him. He looked about 60, thin, dusty, wearing a sun-faded windbreaker, clutching a half-empty jug of water like it was gold. He was sitting against the side of the gas station store with a cardboard sign. It read, "Just trying to get back to Flagstaff. Anything helps." James nodded toward him and said, "We're headed north anyway." Before I could even respond, he was already walking over. He called himself Richard, said his car had broken down a few towns back, that he'd been walking for days. He thanked us more times than I could count. And then he fell silent. At first I didn't mind. I figured he was exhausted. But as the hours passed, something about him started to unsettle me. He didn't ask where we were going. Didn't make small talk. Just sat in the back seat, staring out the window. Every so often I'd glance in the rearview mirror, and he wouldn't be looking outside. He'd be staring straight ahead. At the back of my head, we told him we'd drop him off at a rest stop a few miles outside Flagstaff. He didn't say anything, just nodded. But when we finally pulled off the highway and into the rest area, he didn't move. James turned around and said, "Hey man, this is your stop." Richard looked at him and then down at his hands and whispered, "Are you sure this is safe?" We looked at each other. "I mean, yeah," James said. "It's a public stop." Richard leaned in slightly, eyes still on his lap. "Last time I got out of a car here, I didn't come back for a long time." Then he opened the door, stepped out, didn't close it behind him, didn't say thanks, just walked toward the far side of the building, and disappeared around the corner. We waited a few minutes, figured maybe he went to the restroom, or just needed a second to be alone. We used the bathroom, refilled our water, got back in the car. Still no sign of him. We drove a lap around the stop just in case. Nothing. There weren't any other cars, no workers, nothing. We were the only ones there. We chalked it up to some weird desert hermit behavior and drove off. But about 20 minutes later, I realized something. My phone, which had been charging in the front, was missing. Gone. The cable was still plugged in, but no phone. I looked under the seat, in the side door, in the glove box. Nothing. That was when James turned pale. He reached behind his seat, where he kept a zippered pouch, a small bag with his passport, some cash, and an old backup phone. Gone. We both stared at each other. Neither of us said anything. Then James pulled over, jumped out, checked the back. Our backpacks were untouched, but the center console was open. That was when I remembered something. Right before we picked up Richard, James had said something, almost joking. Should I put the pouch under the seat or back here with the rest of the gear? Richard had been sitting behind James on the whole time we turned around, started speeding back toward the rest stop. But when we got there, it wasn't empty anymore. There were 3 sheriff cruisers parked out front, crime scene tape around the men's restroom, a couple people standing off to the side giving statements. We pulled into the side lot, heart pounding, and approached one of the officers. He stopped us before we could get a word out. "Sorry folks, we've had an incident here, you'll need to keep moving." James asked, "Did a man come through here? Old guy? Windbreaker?" The officer stared at him, just for a second, then asked, "Did he approach your vehicle?" We told him we'd given him a ride, told him the name he gave us, Richard, told him he had stolen from us. The officer didn't seem surprised. He motioned to another deputy, told him to get our statements, then turned and muttered something that made my skin crawl. We've been trying to ID that guy for years. Turns out, Richard wasn't homeless. Not exactly. He'd been drifting between towns for almost a decade, appearing at rest stops, gas stations, scenic pull-offs, always claiming to need a ride, always with a different name. Sometimes people picked him up and dropped him off with no issue. Sometimes they didn't. There had been at least 2 reports of robberies, 1 missing person, no convictions, no confirmed link, until today. They didn't tell us what happened in the restroom. Didn't need to. We filled out a report, gave our phone numbers, and left. Neither of us said a word for hours, just drove in silence. Until we hit Utah. We never got our stuff back. I changed all my passwords. James canceled everything in the pouch. I still check every backseat now. Still think about the way he looked at us. Not like he needed help, like he was deciding something. Have you ever picked up a stranger on the road? You never really know who's sitting behind you, or what they're capable of. Subscribe for more stories where the wrong turn might be your last. Drop a comment if you've ever had a road trip experience that still haunts you. This happened in July 2024. My girlfriend Ava and I had just hit our 1-year anniversary, and we decided to celebrate it with a road trip. The plan was simple. Drive from Denver down to Big Bend National Park in Texas, camping along the way. We wanted something quiet, something that felt like a disconnect from everything. We took my old Honda Accord, packed it with supplies, and hit the road. The first few days were incredible. Scenic drives, starry skies, 0 cell reception. But on the 4th day, things shifted. We were in the middle of nowhere, somewhere along a stretch of road that cut through West Texas. No gas stations, no other cars, just scrubland, fences, and distant cattle. That's when the engine light started flashing. The car began to sputter. I pulled off onto a gravel patch beside an old ranch fence, popped the hood, did the classic thing where I looked at it like I had any idea what I was doing. After about 30 minutes of poking around and trying the ignition, nothing. Dead. Our phones had 0 signal, and we hadn't seen another car in over an hour. So when we spotted a green pickup truck bouncing toward us from the horizon, we were relieved at first. The guy who stepped out was tall, probably in his 50s, deep sunburn, a slight limp. He smiled, with too many teeth, and asked if we needed help. We explained what happened. He offered to tow us to a local mechanic just 10 minutes away. Said the town was called Wilton Gap. I'd never heard of it, neither had Ava, but we didn't really have a choice. So he hitched our car to his truck, and we climbed into the cab. The entire way there, he didn't speak, just stared at the road, humming tunelessly, knuckles pale on the wheel. Wilton Gap wasn't on our map. It was a town so small, it barely felt real. A row of weather-worn buildings, a diner, a post office, and what looked like a gas station from the 1960s. He pulled us into a gravel lot beside a corrugated metal building. A handmade sign read, "Frank's Auto." There was no one inside. He told us Frank usually showed up after dinner, and we should grab food at the diner and wait. Then he drove off. No goodbye. Just gone. The diner was unsettling from the moment we stepped inside. Every table was full, but no one was speaking. Just eating, in perfect silence. Even the clinking of cutlery felt rehearsed, synchronized. The waitress walked up to us before we could even sit down. She didn't ask what we wanted. She just said, "There's a room open upstairs. We'll add it to your check." We told her we weren't staying. She stared at us, then said softly, "Everyone stays. Just the one night." And walked away. We should have left. Walked, ran, but it was already getting dark. We had no car, no signal, and nowhere else to go, so we went upstairs. The hallway smelled like bleach and old water. The room was bare, just a bed, a lamp, and a window with no screen. I didn't sleep. Neither did Ava. We lay there, listening. Somewhere down the hallway, footsteps, soft, slow, like someone was pacing. Around 3 a.m., I got up to use the bathroom. It was at the end of the hall. As I stepped out, I noticed something. All the other doors, they had no doorknobs, just flat wood, like they'd never been opened. And when I came back, Ava was sitting upright in bed. She whispered, "There was someone outside the window." I looked. Nothing. But I believed her. We packed up right then, didn't wait for morning. We walked through the town in the dark. Every house had its lights on, but no one inside. The diner, still full. Same people still eating. In silence. We ran, didn't stop until we reached the edge of town, and there, on a stretch of road that shouldn't have had a signal, Ava's phone buzzed. 1 bar, enough for a call. We rang roadside assistance. Someone would be there in 45 minutes. We sat on the edge of a ditch and waited. But before anyone showed up, we saw something. In the rearview mirror of a road sign behind us, a line of people, standing just outside the tree line, not moving, just watching. We didn't speak the entire ride back. The mechanic that finally showed up said he'd never heard of Wilton Gap, said there was nothing out there, just abandoned ranch land, old oil pads. We pulled up GPS on Ava's phone. No town, no diner, no road marker, nothing. We left the car behind, bought a flight home the next morning. Didn't even go to Big Bend. Sometimes I wonder if the town is real, or if it only shows up when you're stranded, tired, lost. And sometimes, I wonder if anyone ever leaves it. Have you ever broken down in the middle of nowhere? Subscribe for more stories that begin with a detour and end somewhere you were never meant to go. Comment if you've ever seen a town that shouldn't exist. It was supposed to be one last reckless adventure before graduation. Choral Fest, a weekend party so infamous at South Coast University, it felt more like a pilgrimage than a campus event. 3 days, non-stop music, crowded streets, rooftops turned into dance floors. Nobody missed Choral Fest. Unless they had a death wish. I wasn't really the party type. But my best friend Luis convinced me to go. He said it would be therapeutic. After all, it was our last year. Our last shot at memories we could actually talk about later. Our group was small. Just me, Luis, Nadia, and Jordan. We packed into Jordan's beat-up Civic and drove 6 hours to the coast. We didn't know it yet, but we picked up an extra passenger along the way. Someone who didn't belong. The first weird thing happened at a gas station, an hour from campus. While Jordan pumped gas and Luis grabbed Red Bulls, Nadia and I waited in the car. That's when I noticed a guy standing by the edge of the parking lot, not doing anything, just watching. I figured he was just another drifter. Choral Fest attracted all kinds. We didn't think about him again. Until we got to our motel. The guy was there too, leaning against the ice machine, eyes half-lidded, smiling too much. The kind of smile that feels practiced, hungry. Still, we chalked it up to coincidence. Choral Fest, right? Everyone and their mother showed up for it. We got the last available room, 2 beds, floor space for the unlucky. After tossing our stuff inside, we headed to the pre-festival parties already kicking off at the marina. We should have checked the locks. We should have trusted the unease, itching under our skin. By midnight, the streets were a war zone. Foam, spilled drinks, fireworks. We stumbled back to the motel around 2 a.m., feet aching, clothes damp from ocean mist. The hallways were too quiet, like the motel had swallowed everyone whole. When we reached our door, it was already cracked open. Inside, it looked like nothing had been touched, except for one thing, a duffel bag, not ours, sitting neatly and out by the bathroom door. Luis joked nervously about ghost guests. Nadia wanted to leave immediately. Jordan checked the closet and the bathroom, empty. We decided to bolt. We shoved what we could into our bags, planning to crash somewhere and anywhere else. But as we rushed to the car, the guy from the gas station was standing by the driver's door, grinning, holding Jordan's car keys. He didn't say a word, just jangled the keys in his hand, like bait. When Jordan lunged for them, the guy sidestepped easily, like he knew exactly how we'd react. He dropped the keys, but as Jordan reached for them, two more figures emerged from the shadows, both wearing cheap plastic Coral Fest masks, sun and wave motifs, smiling in frozen, stupid grins. That's when it clicked. It wasn't just one guy following us. There were three, and they had a plan. Luis tried to reason with them, tried to ask what they wanted. They laughed. Not loud, low and broken, like they weren't even sure it was funny. One of them pulled something from behind his back, a crowbar, crusted with rust. Another held a length of chain, not guns, not knives, but still enough to make the message clear. They didn't want money. They wanted something worse, a chase, a hunt. Jordan yanked the keys from the ground, and we sprinted toward the Civic. The motel door slammed behind us, the strangers close. Luis threw himself into the back seat. Nadia and I piled into the passenger side. Jordan jammed the key into the ignition. It didn't turn. The engine coughed. Once, twice, dead. I don't know if it was panic or luck that made me think of it. I slammed my door open, cracked one of the masked guys across the face with it, and screamed for everyone to run. The parking lot blurred around us as we bolted into the night. No phones, no plan, just pure survival. We ran toward the main road, the only place with any light, hearing boots pounding behind us. Somehow, by some miracle, a pickup truck full of drunk students pulled over, thinking we were just hammered partiers needing a lift. We jumped into the bed without even asking. As the truck peeled away, I looked back. The three figures stood in the glow of the streetlights, masks tilting upward, just watching, silent, unmoving, like they'd been expecting us to get away, like the chase was part of it all along. We made it to safety that night, crashing at a friend of a friend's house far from the motel. The police? They didn't take it seriously. They called it Coral Fest hysteria, said we'd probably just pissed off some locals. The motel manager shrugged when we showed him the duffel bag, said he didn't know whose it was, didn't want trouble. We never got answers, never saw them again. But sometimes, when I'm walking alone at night, I feel it. That smile, that hunger, the kind of evil that doesn't need a reason, just an opportunity. If you ever feel like you're being watched, you probably are. Drop a comment below if you've ever had a close call with danger. Subscribe for more stories where survival is never guaranteed. This happened in the fall of 2019. I was on a cross-country drive from Oregon to North Carolina with my friend Cassie. We were relocating for work and decided to turn the move into a scenic road trip, split the cost, split the driving, make some memories along the way. Somewhere near the Kansas-Missouri border, our back tire blew. It wasn't a full blowout, more like a slow leak. That became impossible to ignore. We pulled over just outside a small town called Glenwood Hollow. Never heard of it before. You wouldn't find it on a billboard. It was the kind of place you drive through in 3 minutes and forget just as fast. The nearest gas station was maybe 2 miles off the main highway. Cassie stayed with the car. I started walking. It was just after 4 p.m., but the sky was already dimming. You know that weird yellow-gray light that shows up before a storm? Everything looked faded, even the trees. The gas station had a pump, a rusted-out vending machine, and a storefront with yellowing posters in the window. Inside, a man sat behind the counter reading a newspaper. Mid-50s, heavy-set, eyes that barely moved when I walked in. I asked if he had a jack or any kind of tire patch kit. He didn't say anything, just nodded toward the back wall. I thanked him, started toward the shelves. That's when another man stepped out from the storage area behind the counter. Younger, leaner, too clean for a place like that. He smiled and said, "I can help you. Just gotta close up real quick." I hesitated. Said we were just a few minutes down the road. If he had a jack, we could handle it ourselves. He smiled again, wider this time, and said, "Can't let someone get stranded out here. Not with the woods the way they are." I didn't know what that meant, but I nodded. He walked outside, grabbed a set of tools from his truck, and told me to lead the way. Back at the car, Cassie was sitting on the hood watching the road. She stood up as we pulled in. I introduced him, but he didn't respond, just crouched beside the car and started inspecting the tire. Cassie leaned close and whispered, "He gives me the creeps." I told her I knew, and that we'd be back on the road soon. But then he spoke, still crouched, not looking up. "You two heading anywhere special?" Cassie said, "North Carolina." He nodded slowly, then said, "You'll never make it that far." We laughed it off, tried to brush it off as a weird local sense of humor. But something about how he said it felt intentional, like he wasn't joking, like he knew something we didn't. After a few minutes, he stood up, said he didn't have the right size patch, but he could tow us to a buddy's place who'd fix it for free. Said it was only about 15 minutes away. Cassie and I made eye contact. Didn't say a word, but we were both thinking the same thing. No. I thanked him again. Said we'd call roadside assistance instead. His smile faded just a little. Then he said, "Just be careful. There's people out here that don't like outsiders." Then he walked back to his truck and drove off. We waited until he was out of sight, then called for help. While we waited, I looked at the back tire again, just out of curiosity. That's when I noticed something. The sidewall wasn't punctured naturally. There were two small cuts close together, clean, intentional, almost like someone had knifed it. We started going back over everything in our heads. Where we'd parked, where we'd stopped for gas earlier that day, whether we saw anyone near the car. But then Cassie pulled out her phone and froze. "What the hell?" She showed me her screen. Her camera roll was open, and there were 6 photos she didn't take. All of them, of us. 2 of me walking toward the gas station, 1 of her sitting on the hood. 3 from behind a tree, about 20 feet from the car, all time-stamped from less than an hour ago. All taken on her phone. We left everything and started walking down the road until roadside assistance arrived. Didn't even wait for the car to be fully loaded. Just climbed into the truck and asked the driver to keep going. Told him to leave Glenwood Hollow off the map. 2 weeks later, Cassie got an alert from her iCloud, a new device trying to sync from an unknown location. She changed everything, passwords, account info, but for a long time after that, we both felt like someone still had our pictures, still knew our names, still remembered where we were going. We never finished the road trip. We flew the rest of the way, and I haven't driven through Missouri since. Sometimes it's not the breakdown that's scary, it's who finds you while you're stranded. Subscribe for more stories where strangers aren't always what they seem. Comment if you've ever taken help from someone and regretted it later.